You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact. It's Green. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we have been watching Relics. It first aired the week of 12th of October 1992. It was written by Ronald D. Moore and directed by Alexander Singer. James, what is this one all about?
The Enterprise is answering a distress call when they encounter a Dyson Sphere. Not a hand dryer, but a gargantuan ball built around a sun designed to house a vast population. They find the source of distress. It's a transport vessel, the Jenolan, that crashed 75 years earlier. An away team investigates and discovers that the transporter has been rigged to store a pattern over the long term. They dematerialise, and it's Captain Montgomery Scott. You know Scotty. He was in Star Trek. The original Star Trek. No, not Simon Pegg. After the ship crashed, he worked one of his miracles to try and survive, but his friend Franklin didn't make it. On board the Enterprise, he wants to help in engineering, but his knowledge is out of date and his lack of professionalism annoys everyone. So he gets drunk and visits the holodeck, which is what most people in the 24th century are probably doing at any one time. Speaking to Picard, he confesses that he feels obsolete, so the captain asks Geordi to take him down to his old ship and try and fix it to get the scans. Look, it's busy work, but it's better than nothing. While they're down there, the Enterprise then gets sucked into the sphere and is propelled towards the sun. Can Scotty prove his worth once again and save the Enterprise D?
Probably. Well, Alex, you'd never seen this one before. What did you make of it?
I mean, it's a bit of a sort of big warm hug of an episode, isn't it? Sounds like I'm going to undercut it, but no, actually, it genuinely was. It was very nice, in stark contrast to Man of the People, which was awful. I mean, it is just essentially your elderly relative wants help with their iPad, but I think that works. It would be so easy to do the nostalgia trip with someone from the original series and just have it be a bit sort of clawing, just a bit too fan servicey. This treads the line just right.
I think it is the perfect example of how to handle a legacy character. And I think it works in that way because it's perhaps a cliche. If it wasn't Scotty, would this still work as an episode? And I think probably it would. There's no hero worship here. There's nobody on the Enterprise who's like, oh my goodness, it's Montgomery Scott of the Enterprise. I'm such a big fan. I know all the facts about him. It's just, here's some guy. Oh, and we've got to deal with him now.
As an actor coming into this, you kind of have to leave some of your pride at the door with a script that is basically everyone not saying it, but basically being disappointed that it's not one of the major characters.
Scotty's one of the big characters.
I mean, yeah, but he's B tier. He's not one of the main three.
In between A and B.
He is the one that you can bring on and people will recognize, but actually on the original show doesn't get to do any of the interesting stuff.
He's the affordable star that you can get at a convention in a local leisure centre.
And the writers had this discussion. The transporter loop, storing someone in a buffer, was basically it had been sold to them from another script, and they didn't really like the other script, but they did like this idea, and it was a way to bring back someone from the original cast. And obviously, you can't do Spock. He's still alive, and he's been in the show already. You can't do McCoy, who probably would have been a pretty good option for something like this. And obviously, his relationship with the transporter, that might have worked out great. But he's already in it, and he's like 200 years old. You obviously can't do Kirk because they want to save him for something else. Then you're left with Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura, and Scotty. And obviously, out of those ones, you're going to choose Scotty because through no fault of their own, those other ones didn't really get characters other than being Russian, answering the phone, and being Sulu.
It was good enough for Voyager.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So Scotty is a good choice, and he has traits. He might not have a full character, but he certainly has traits. He is Scottish, and he likes drinking. Like, and he's an engineer, and the whole thing with an engineer is he loves the ship, and he has that. I'm the Scottish engineer. He's the engineer on a boat. He's the engineer on a train. He's the guy who actually understands the engine and actually understands and fuels the ship. So there are elements to play with there that I don't think you would have necessarily with the other characters. And he's kind of a big character as well. It's a big performance, no matter what.
And can I just say, after over a decade of doing this podcast, how nice it is finally to be hearing a proper Scottish accent. None of your fake namby-pamby impressions here, but the proper, genuine Scotch.
Can I just say, I fully object to him asking for Scotch in the bar because I don't think anyone who is Scottish would ever ask for Scotch. Similarly, in Strange New Worlds, Scotty drinks Guinness because I figure they think, well, close enough, isn't it? But I mean, the accent is bad, and I think it's particularly bad here. It does wander into
Mm.
Canadian quite a lot, but you don't care because that is what it is, and that's what it's always been.
No, no, you don't understand. That's what Scottish people sound like in the future.
Of course. Just like French people sound like they're from Yorkshire. So let's get into it. There's a distress call, classic Star Trek, and they encounter a Dyson Sphere, which is
Well, it's a thing, isn't it?
it's a thing. It is a sort of thought experiment come up with by a physicist to build basically a planet around a sun, and then you have the population on the inside, but that has to be basically insanely large. So it's hundreds of billions would have to live on it, and because basically the sphere is the same size as the orbit of the Earth, it is millions of times the size of the Earth, which seems like it would be hard to miss it, I guess, in space.
No, nobody went looking for the Scotty and Franklin.
I'm going to guess here that what surely has to be one of the greatest pieces of astral engineering that has ever been referenced in this series basically never plays a part in it ever again.
Oh no, never comes up again. It's never mentioned again.
You would think it would be quite significant.
Eh,
Maybe they couldn't see it because the Dyson Sphere is covering the star, so there's actually no light on the outside of it.
I believe there was some gravimetric interference, which was a big problem.
That gravimetric interference, it stops you seeing things from outside of the window.
And it stops anyone from hearing a distress call for 75 years along the route at which they were traveling. The ship disappeared, lost a full complement of crew. Did you check? Nah.
There's too much gravimetric interference to check.
Well, the thing is, space is really big.
I have to say, I thought the sphere was going to play a more significant element to the story than it ultimately proved to be, which essentially was just, you know, it basically amounts to an Indiana Jones closing stone door, doesn't it? I thought this massive thought experiment, so much attention given to it, that's surely going to be quite significant. No, not really. It's probably testament to the episode that I'm not criticizing it more for that.
But I don't think you should criticize it because it's the science B plot, and we've seen how often those are completely perfunctory. And so it's nice to have one that's got a bit of texture to it, which is like, oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty neat idea. Look at that lovely model shot of the orbit and the interior and the big door. Like I'm quite happy with it because it's like a pretty cool idea, but it's just such a B plot. It doesn't really matter.
I mean, yeah, but then normally the B plot is is something less significant. It's building a model ship, or that something's gone wrong with the medical equipment and it's telling people that Geordie's blood's been replaced by custard, that sort of thing. Not not an enormous structure's been constructed larger than anything else that's ever been seen in civilization. I think that was the reason.
I like to think it would come up again. You could probably do a
Mm.
spin-off built around the Dyson Sphere, which is the size of hundreds of worlds inside. You could just have people exploring that, but no, never ever mentioned ever again.
I think the point I realized that, oh, no, perhaps not as significant, was the getting inside the ends. It's uninhabited. Right. Okay.
Like, it could have been worse. They could have just blown it up at the end.
I mean, they never go back to it, so they might as well have done.
To jump around a bit, but I think that's a very good way into this thought. Is just it's such an episodic episode of Star Trek because it just has to be wrapped up at the end. It's oh, Scotty, you need to leave now. Here's a shuttle. Off you pop. Oh, and the Dyson Sphere. Some science ships are coming to look at that. We're away now. Whereas you could set a whole season of a TV show around that. You probably would. You'd have an episode where they find it. There'd have an episode where they open the door. You'd have an episode where they go in. They'd have an episode where you land. You'd have an episode where you discover the weird underground aliens or something like that. But this, it's just like, yeah, throw away this concept that could have been explored in far more depth. And I'm fine with that. I like a good concept that's thrown away. That's why I love Red Dwarf.
I agree with you about I mean, not to, I mean, obviously, we're going this in entirely the wrong order, but looking at the ending, I was surprised that, yeah, it just sort of just come out of nowhere of, "Oh, here's a shuttle, bye." I was fully expecting that it was going to be that they opened the door and it was, the holodeck, and instead of him thinking that he'd gone on to 10 forward for a drink, they recreated the Enterprise again, and he was going on to the equivalent from the Enterprise, and all of the crew are there to welcome him for a drink because it's more of a homely setting. I thought, that'd be a nice note to end on. But no, no, bye.
So the narrative is that they find him, and he is trapped in a transporter. A lovely idea, way it's set up. Quite strange though, because we did have that Barclay episode a couple of episodes ago, where it seems you're fully conscious in the transporter the entire time. So was he just like waiting there for 75 years looking for giant worms to grab onto?
Are you actually fully conscious, or is it like you're conscious until a point, and then you have like a nanosecond where you're not, and then
I don't know. It just seemed like that way for Barclay, but I don't think we've ever dealt with that ever again. But they bring him out, and there is the TOS sound and the actual transporter sparkle, which they went to find in a box of film stock at Paramount, which is delightful. So it doesn't really make any sense for the era of ship, but a nice touch. Like not too much, but here's the level of reference that we want.
And when he does appear, I mean, knowing that this episode was coming, because obviously, how could you not? I was sort of fully expecting that he materialized, and then the crew go, "Oh my God, Montgomery Scott, what are you doing here?" So I was pleasantly surprised to see it was just everyone going, "And you are?"
I think it's perfect. I love it. In any other Star Trek show, I think maybe not Deep Space Nine, they'd be far too busy. But in any other Star Trek show, I think that there would be hero worship, especially in the new era. I mean, they literally do that in Strange New Worlds, where they have a crossover with Lower Decks, and it is very much wow, you're Spock, and just the tone of it is sort of painful. And, if Tom Paris has encountered someone from the classic era, he would have known all about them if it was in Voyager as well, and it would have been cloying. But they get him on board the Enterprise, he goes to sick bay, he is taken to quarters. No one wants to talk to him. Picard's like, "Oh, I hope to hear stories from your era, but not right now. I'm busy." I generally feel the level of care from the crew of the Enterprise for someone who has gone through what can only be described as a horrific trauma. From their point of view, they've crashed, they've seen all the crew die, they've tried to save themselves in the transporter. He's lost his other colleague who just moments before is completely gone. And then you're fine 75 years has passed. And then they're like, well, off you popped your quarters now. Oh, okay.
Do you think you would have noticed if this was just a random crew member from 70 years ago?
I think he's supposed to be. I mean, surely you would assume that anyone from the original Enterprise crew would be relatively well known. That's my assumption. I have nothing to base it on.
I guess if it's your workplace, it's like, would you care about the people who worked the same job that long ago?
And I mean, there is the suggestion that people do know because I mean, look at the films. Look at Generations. I know obviously that comes after this in terms of production, but where that starts, where they're invited guests onto the new Enterprise on its test flight. So they're not completely unknown.
But that's very much of its time. Think about it this way. It's like John Pertwee being invited to Sylvester McCoy being introduced as the new Doctor. But now, if there's a new Doctor, would anybody care if, well, they care if John Pertwee turned up.
I'd be astonished.
I think it's a matter of they were well known at the time, but with 100 years having passed, are they as well
Yeah.
known?
And I think they would know Kirk and Spock is probably the thing. The rest of the crew, sure.
Yeah, because McCoy was on the Enterprise D, and they didn't really make much of it.
No, exactly. Just an old admiral.
The whole idea of having someone coming on board, having experienced something truly horrific, and now everyone wants rid of them and no one really wants to talk to them is very similar to the experience of seeing any of the cast of Primeval at a convention.
Is there primeval conventions?
No, they just turn up at all the Comic Cons.
Yeah, it's going to be, again, one of those ones in a local leisure centre. Can I ask a question here? Do they just bestow the rank of captain on anyone that served on the original Enterprise? Because what about Scotty shows him as moving up the greasy pole of leadership?
I think they were all, by Star Trek 6, either captain or commander. I think they'd all reached that rank just basically by being really old.
I was going to say, is it like the royals being given military honours?
Yeah, I think it's essentially you're not going to serve in command, and they were mostly teachers, I guess, by that point. So just a certain level of respect, I would guess.
Because Scotty always worked on the Enterprise, didn't he?
Yeah,
Did he? He didn't ever move to another ship.
no, and it was him who oversaw the refit in the motion picture. So he served on 11 ships, but mostly the Enterprise.
Yeah, because it was right from the original Enterprise to the Enterprise A. And I will note that I've seen some people cite this episode as saying, well, you see, Enterprise didn't happen because the computer doesn't mention the NXO on Enterprise, but Scotty specifically mentions Federation starships.
Well, exactly. So we talk about the relationships here. The main driver is the source of tension between Geordi and Scotty. Scotty wants to see engineering. Scotty has all his old ideas. He tells Geordi that he's doing things wrong, even though he doesn't have that knowledge. And Geordi is frustrated. Geordi is a professional. The Enterprise is a professional place. I feel this shows this great contrast between the original series, where everything was done not casually, but differently. And the very boring, very efficient, very you knuckle down, you get your job done, and you just move on. This is just a job to me. I'm a professional. What are you talking about? You love engines, you freak. It feels very much like the sort of relationship I have in the workplace with some of the Gen Zs who have a different approach. There's this nice generational gap, and it results in quite a lot of tension. And Geordi, I don't think he comes across well. We said when we were watching Picard, it was like, was Geordi always a dick? And I think actually, yeah, he was.
I don't think it's Scotty being unprofessional. I think he just has a passion and he gets ahead of himself a lot. Whereas Geordie, he is just the consummate professional. unless he's on the holodeck.
The writers have it in their heads that Geordi's not really a passion engineer, it's just a career opportunity for him. He started out on the bridge, then became chief engineer, he might want to be a captain someday. So it's just a job and he'll do it very well and he'll always do his homework and he'll learn about all the new systems. But for Scotty, like being an engineer is the thing. It is a calling to him. Whereas not so much. And that's kind of the difference between their characters in some ways.
To an extent, but I don't get the feeling from Geordi that he isn't interested in engineering. It does feel like it's his home as a character.
Yeah, and you can put that down to just first season weirdness, really. Just like when Sulu was a physicist for some reason at the start of the original series. I think it's quite hard to play because in many ways, they're both right. Scotty is deeply annoying, and he is also doing things wrong where there is a job to do. And Geordi actually has to get his job done and is a bit grumpy. But you do feel that they could have been doing, like I say, more of a duty of care to Scotty and kind of occupying him. Now there's a cutscene which takes place between Troy and Scotty after he gets very annoyed at Geordi and is kicked out of engineering. And I feel like I actually think that scene's pretty good because it plays at him getting annoyed, and then Troy kind of very gently interviews him, asks if he's okay. He gets upset about being analysed, and then it's like, "There's only one thing I need," and then he walks to 10 forward, which flows quite nicely. But I also see why they cut it.
They needed to cut it for time, but at the same time, it's another little emphasis about how the times have changed. I don't know. I know we don't need it as an audience to know, oh, there's counselors in the 24th century now that care about mental health, but that is genuinely one area where it would have been nice to have that in there. It's strange that they cut a Troy scene and were saying, actually, that would have been nice if it was in.
I mean, it does make some sense of the ending where Scotty goes and shakes everyone's hand and sort of warmly goes, "Goodbye" to Troy, and you go, "Have you actually spoken? I can't remember."
I mean, even though we don't see it on screen, you assume that the guy who's just appeared from 70 odd years from the past would speak with the ship's counselor.
And again, you have the data scene and the bar, the Sinfa hall. Everything is sort of emphasizing the differences. The quarters are different. The doctors are pretty ladies. Casual sexism no longer acceptable on a starship. The technology has changed. Even alcohol has changed. You don't have real alcohol on the starship. Everything has been softened in this weird, cushioned, carpeted environment. And so they get some green alcohol. Do you remember that? Do you remember the scene where they said it's green in Star Trek? And like it's such a gentle nod as well. Everything is an Easter egg now. I don't know when it happened, but this is just okay. That's nice. But then we do reach this kind of ultimate Easter egg. I remember watching this in the 90s and genuinely having my tiny mind blown when he goes to the holodeck and goes onto the Enterprise. Those doors open, and obviously that is just a loop, and it's from the shot on this side of Paradise, which they actually cleaned up for the episode. I guess they went back to the original film negative as well, where everyone's gone down to the planet and it's just Kirk left on the Enterprise. But before he comes through the doors, there's this little shot, and they managed to do that. And then you open the doors and he walks in, and you cut to his reaction. And then I don't know if you've seen the photograph, but it's just this one console of the Enterprise with the door that they've built. And they borrowed the captain's chair and the front console from a fan for an exhibition, and they've put that in, and they just film it at the perfect angle, and it just merges perfectly, and you can do the reverse shot using the same bit of set with Picard, but, like, I just think it's stunning, and it's so nice to see that set, and I think it's just so effectively done. Now you can look at it and go, "Well, yeah, very clearly that whole bridge is not there," but it just works. They did just enough to make it really, really work for me. I just think that scene is is so good. Such a welling of nostalgia, but just tonally spot on.
It's a very impressive effect because obviously, walking into the holodeck, obviously he's in front of a green screen, but then once he's on the bridge, you don't really notice. It might just be because it's the HD remaster.
Fully assumed that it was when those doors opened that there was going to be no interaction with that set. It would just be him walking, looking at it, and then walking away again. I was most surprised when they actually entered.
The original pitch for it was that they were going to use footage from the original series and have the crew of the Enterprise there talking to him. And I don't think that would be an ambition too far. I don't think they ever got very far with that. Did some similar stuff in Prodigy. I think that would have been a bit tacky, to be honest, to do that.
And then they did it fully in Deep Space Nine.
Well, absolutely. You have that using the old footage, but here, just having that old Scotty on this pristine recreation of that set.
Well, it's not even a recreation, is it? It's the actual set just on a green screen. That's why it's so impressive how good it looks.
No, they built they built the engineering station in the door.
Yeah, they built enough of it to get the
Yeah.
effect. But I think it's so impressive because I misremembered. I thought, oh yeah, they got the whole set from a fan exhibition, but that was actually Enterprise which did that, wasn't it?
It's underscored so well with the conversation with Picard about Scotty feeling obsolete. It's that emotional undercurrent. This is the past and this is where I belong, but I can't exist in your world. So just existing in this fantasy for a moment. It's the best use of the holodeck. We have good use of Troy and we have a good use of the holodeck. I mean, what more could you want?
Except Picard does kind of hammer home the point by saying that he's visited the bridge in a museum.
And of course, there's a Constitution class in the Fleet Museum, and we see that in Picard season 3, and it is the Enterprise A. So it's not really the same because it's a Mark II Constitution class refit version, which is not the same at all. I mean, if Geordi really wanted to point out that things were pretty much the same in this century, he could have very much said, "Yeah, the Excelsiors, they're all over the place. Most of the ships, in fact, that we encounter are Excelsior class ships. You wouldn't believe it. It's almost like that model was just lying around."
I mean, even if the original Enterprise still existed, it was completely different by the time it was destroyed.
Exactly. You shouldn't feel so bad about it.
I'm glad it blew up.
Hey, and now, right? This version of this set has been removed from canon through Strange New Worlds and Discovery.
Yeah, because things aren't allowed to look like they looked. So the Enterprise D looks exactly like it did back then, but the original Enterprise that looks completely different.
Yeah. It's like the Klingons in that respect. So, redemption, there's a crisis, the Enterprise in the B plot, it gets sucked in to the Dyson Sphere. I think there's some great effects going on in this episode. Like it is really it's all really good. And you wouldn't say like this is generally cited as one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek, but it's just like all the little bits are firing in all cylinders. It's quite obviously it's a guest episode and they have the arc. And good for James Doohan. He actually got an episode to star in that's really about him, which I didn't get much of in the original series. And he carries it extraordinarily. I was going to say it's a bit of an ensemble show. It's Geordi and Picard is a little bit. There's some gags at Worf, but
But all of them individually, it's never sort of a gang show. It's each person comes in to do their bit with him, and then it skips on to someone else.
yeah. In order to make him feel useful, Picard sends Geordi and Scotty down to the Jenolan to try and recover the records from their scans, which is just, give the old man something to do, keep him busy. But then they fix the ship so they can save the day. The moment of redemption. Do you think that'll work? Do you think it kind of like feels right? It's almost like putting him into his own environment, and he actually you can see, oh, this guy's a genius. This guy can repair anything.
I mean, it's not surprising, is it? I mean, it's where we expect the plot to go, but I think it feels earned by this point. I'm not sure how many more rounds of the, "Oh, he doesn't understand, grandpa," we could have gone round. I feel like we'd probably about hit the limit at the point where we were at, which sounds like I'm criticizing. I'm not. It's well done. Um, but ultimately, you've got to pull it right. It is, as I said, it is, elderly relative needs help with their iPad story. For a dramatic arc, it can only have one ending, unless they die.
They need help with their iPad, but they know how to repair an actual physical engine.
They need help with their iPad, but they know how to rewire the plug when the charger goes wrong. So ultimately, you need them. There you are. That's boiling the plot down to simple levels.
That's excellent.
I think it's so predictable that it's intentional because the audience is then willing it to happen.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say with my strange plug analogies.
I guess it also shows, well, they're the heroes. They broke the rules, but damn it, they got the job done. I think it all works very well. It's a good narrative arc. It makes total sense. And the ship that's been down there for 75 years, they just go, it'll take 3 weeks to fix. Oh, I fixed it now. Fine. He's a miracle worker. He can do anything. It's not that thing in Star Trek, the Star Trek 2009, where they basically make them all superheroes. All the original series cast are super geniuses and they can do anything. It's not quite that, but obviously there is a level of status of these characters where yes, they can fix the ship, they can make it fly, they can get the shields working, they can save the entire enterprise. Now, I guess the thing that they could have done, this is taking a character whose story has ended and giving them a different one. And what they do with Kirk in Generations, spoiler, is they kill him off. Like, they could have done that. Do you think there would have been anything worthwhile in that story?
You can't do it, not in an episode like this. It's a gentle, warm blanket of an episode. It never goes like too far in any one direction. It just like very I don't know any other way to word it. It's just so gentle, so careful.
Everyone is ultimately proved to be competent in the workplace.
This is exactly how you do a legacy character episode. You bring them in, there's some tension, tension is taken to a peak, there's a solution, turns out they're amazing. Great, everyone's happy, you get a shuttle, off you go.
The strange thing about him being a legacy character, this episode came out about like it's about 9 months after Undiscovered Country.
Yeah.
So really, he's not. It's been longer since Q appeared. I know. Obviously, he's new to TNG, but I think in terms of the audience, they will have not long ago seen Scotty in action.
Action's a very loaded word. I am slightly surprised that we end where we do, with Scotty, just flying off into the distance and just leaving him out there. Because I assumed it would, we'd end up with something where he'd be kind of written out of the timeline again. He'd have to return or something like that. So to just fly off into the sunset, I was surprised. I mean, I assume this is basically it for the character.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you count like the novels.
I think we can safely assume that I'm not.
As an actor, he'd be back for Generations, but yes, in terms of the character's arc in canonical works, this is very much the end. I mean, would you have wanted an acknowledgement? Would you have wanted Troy to say that in that scene that they look up? She offers to look up what happened to his friends and family members. Would you have wanted someone to say it's like, "Oh, we just actually met Spock quite recently," And Dr. McCoy's still alive. They were your shipmates. Do you want us to get in touch with them?
Well, we don't know that McCoy is still alive. I mean, let's face it, he wasn't looking so good in Encounter at Farpoint.
I believe in the novel of Generations, as I recall, McCoy and Scotty and Spock all go to Viridian Free together to pay their respects to Kirk's pile of rocks.
How old is he at that point?
Let's say about 150.
That's not too bad.
Exactly. Same age as Patrick Stewart now. But anyway, I enjoyed that one. I hope you did too. But we're going to say some more about it in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
So, just more on that original series bridge. The footage was the footage from this side of paradise, as we've said, but also the shot of the view screen. So you kind of get a full kind of view 360 around the bridge was from the Mark of Gideon, and that was all cleaned up as well. But yeah, then they built the rear portion of the set, save on budget, and hired out the chair and consoles. Now, just looking at the chairs, I think they've got too much of a slant on them. Sulu and Chekhov's chairs, they don't look quite right.
The episode's ruined now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sure you're wondering if the Dyson Sphere ever came up again, maybe in a novel. Well, it unfortunately did. Because Picard visited the Dyson Sphere in the hope of discovering the origin of humanoid life throughout the galaxy, or perhaps the ultimate secret of the Borg. Because everything in expanded media of Star Trek has to include the Borg. Speaking of which, you're probably wondering what Montgomery Scott did after he left the Enterprise.
Conventions. Many, many conventions.
But no, unfortunately, he goes back in time to try and save the lives of Kirk and Franklin, and ends up creating a universe where the Borg control the Alpha Quadrant.
What's that in?
That's in the novel Engines of Destiny.
Obviously, earlier we were mentioning the fact that Troy's not really in it until the end. That is a fact that doesn't go unnoticed by Phil Farrand in the Nitpicker's Guide, saying that she only appears at the very end of Relics, where she is wearing her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail with her bangs on her forehead, open brackets. It's difficult to be objective about this look. 5 years is a long time to see someone's hair fixed in a certain general way. I suppose she was due for a change. I mean, I don't think anyone was asking you to be objective, Phil, but okay. Evidently, Troy liked the look of new hairdos she experimented with while acting as a psychic waste receptacle for the ambassador in the previous episode. A psychic waste receptacle?
To be fair, that's not a bad description of what happens.
It's quite an unpleasant description, though.
It's an unpleasant episode.
And it's an unpleasant book.
The Dyson Sphere is named after scientist Freeman Dyson, who envisioned a real-world postulate in 1959, although the actual sphere was not a solid object like the one in the episode. Dyson, who never took his idea too seriously, said in a later interview that while the science behind it was nonsense, as a TV viewer, he enjoyed the episode. So, the USS Jenolan is named after the Jenolan Caves, which Ron Moore visited after going to a convention in Sydney, and it's a Sydney-class vessel. So, there you go.
How bad was the convention that he had to go to some caves?
Look, it was the Holodeck Star Trek convention, and he went to a party and was labelled a rager, which is Aussie slang for a party animal, because of his dancing. And then they were later went to the caves.
Okay.
While we're on the Jenolan, sort of, it is the SD-103 type shuttle from Star Trek 6, but it was heavily refurbished. But this model was also considered as the model for the runabouts in Deep Space Nine. Talking of transporter buffers, no one was talking of transporter buffers. It's standard practice in Strange New Worlds to store people in transporter buffers. We see it in multiple episodes. So there you go. Scotty wasn't that innovative. It was actually older technology than that. It's just a thing that people do. I imagine it takes up quite a lot of power.
That's why we can't afford any RAM.
So, director Alexander Singer, he had some trepidations. He wasn't sure if James Doohan would be able to perform this. The next intangible that I'd never worked with Doohan, I felt that potentially the show was a kind of classic and I understood exactly what I had in my hands. I did not know physically what shape he was in. There was a lot of dialogue, and I don't think he ever did a show in the old Star Trek where he had that much drama and this many notes to hit. I had seen the Star Trek movies, and I think that's still true. I don't think he was ever in the center. He was peripheral, and then this episode he was center. By the time they came to the scene in the old Star Trek deck, he was not only the center, but he had to support a very powerful dramatic scene. It's a scene that, in reading it, I choked up. Part of me is very hard-headed and realistic, and part of me is very romantic and very sensitive, and I was deeply moved by the story. Duane, however, more than allayed his reservations. So that's good. I like how she, I don't know what physical shape he was in. I was like, literally just done a movie. Let's come off that. But yeah, this old guy coming in here.
There is obviously one huge continuity error created by generations because Scotty sees Kirk die, but when he arrives in the 24th century, he says, I bet Kirk pulled the Enterprise out of mothballs. But don't worry, William Shatner has thought about this.
Of course he has.
In his novel The Return, a comment is made that Scotty, along with some others, held the belief that Kirk had somehow survived the events aboard the Enterprise B.
Ah, he's a Kirk truther.
Well, he was right. He was right all along.
Warp fuel doesn't melt hulls.
Doesn't melt transparent aluminium.
The sad thing is, there is a fan theory that a character who dies at the end of Enterprise survived so he could work for Section 31.
Now, I am sure that this is dealt with thoroughly in the Nitpicker's Guide, but LaForgia and Scott are beamed off the USS Jenolan, but they didn't drop the shields, and they're able to transport through the shields. Ron Moore, the writer, said, it's just a straight, flat-out mistake. I didn't think about it. I didn't catch it. The producers didn't catch it. The technical consultants didn't catch it. It was one of those things, a single line of dialogue could have explained it away. And that is 100% right. And that's ruined the episode for me and all of Star Trek.
You are quite correct. It is that first thing that Farrand brings up under equipment oddities.
I think it's because the USS Jenolan uses the old style shields which rotate on a frequency, and therefore there's a transporter window for more modern ships.
Sure, why not?
That's what they use in Trials and Tribulations in Deep Space Nine to beam through shields in the original series era. So there you go. Well, thank you for listening once again. We will be back soon-ish when we will be talking about schisms. We hope you will join us for that one. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I had to jump out about the time that you were talking about people going, look, you love engines, just get on and do your job. And I was about to interject with, that sounds like the production team from Discovery on Chris Barry's Massive Engines.
Do you think, like, we have become so old our references are no longer relevant to anyone other than ourselves?
Yeah, but so have the audience.